Welcome to round 17 Pod Hunter with the SuperCoach Hub. I'm Scoop, and we're going to go through some of the options today that aren't named Kiraz or Karapani. So, this is a very interesting round. We're heading into the final major buy round next week, and a lot of relevant roosters, which otherwise might be picks, are off the menu at the moment. So, let's get cracking into these pods. I've picked 10 this week, and some of them are really quite left field because we're running out of room in our squad for pod options as we gun up. If I take away this watch list and I just sort by most highly owned guys, the vast majority of the players that you own are all top 25 highest ownership. It makes sense, right? There's not a lot of room left for new guns, new cheapies, all that sort of stuff. The cash cows season is kind of over, and we're looking to really prep for this final team. Another reason why I'll just use my team as an example. If we've got 3 or 4 premium second rowers, there's probably only one spot left that you even want to tinker with. Or even if you've got a couple of injuries this week with Sharp and Bostock and you switch Lucas down, that's probably the only way you've got reasons to play with second row. Centre wing as well, you're probably chasing these 4 guys, or at least 3 of them, plus some big, strong upside guys like Dewonga Nitawaze and things like that. It's really tough to be able to fit that last guy in, and it locks you out of probably getting those alternate guys. So, who out of everybody is actually worth considering to bring in to that list? Well, close to the top of the list conventionally is Jacob Preston, still under 10% owned, and he's been doing very well this year, averaging over 70 and scoring at a pretty decent nick. His work rate is okay, and he's scoring 0.6 tries a game. However, therein lies the rub, because if we look at those games with and without tries, a 72 average at second row is excellent. He's even got 100 there to boot this year. But look at those scores without tries. So 49, 47, 70, 52. They're okay, sure, but you probably want to be hitting bigger than a 66, a 62 if you're scoring tries. Preston isn't a bad pick. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and buy Preston. In fact, he's on this list because I think that if he is in a Bulldogs team that's attacking well and they feed him a couple of balls near the line, he's going to score good points. But I think his ceiling might be a little bit more limited than you might think. I think he's a pretty safe pick, though, compared to some of the others on this list. And if you're looking for a second row this week, Preston is a pretty high on that list. Next one I'm going to talk about. Actually, I'll skip to the other second rower for now, who's both a second rower and a front row forward. Toby Couchman. Now, this man is Mr. Consistent, whether he plays on the edge or in the middle. It doesn't really matter. He's going to get you 60 plus points no matter what, basically. This week, he is on the edge still, but Luciano Leilua is finally back. And I think that means that he probably turns into the Dylan Egan role, where he starts in one and then moves to the other for a good portion of the game. I'd be quite heavily expecting maybe 65 minutes from Toby Couchman, 20, 25 on the edge and 40, 45 in the middle, and some really good PPM in that time in the middle. So given his price has dropped a little bit with that 26 in round 10, I think it's a solid option. Does mean you'll probably lose a few points compared to some of the other big guys that you want to gun up with in the run home. But it's not too bad of an option. And it saves a lot of cash compared to some of those others. If you're one that's got a bit of a lower team value and can't quite afford to shove those 17, 18 big guns into your main 20 best players, Toby Couchman might be a really good pick for you, strategy-wise. Somebody who's on the very opposite end is a very high ceiling guy, but he's got a high break even and he's going to play Origin round 18. So some of his appeal is gone. Like Lomax last week, he has a very nice opponent, but a very high break even. Is it worth bringing in at the moment? I'm not sure if it's perfect, but you've got a goal kicking centre wing who gets a lot of tries and try involvements and even does really well when he doesn't. 86 and 58 when he didn't really have that much to do with the assists, only the goal kicking. The problem is, how well do you think the Dragons will go? Their draw is not the best, not the worst. It's a little bit mixed. I'd probably call it on the harder side, given they play 4 current top 4 teams, twice Raiders, once Bulldogs, and once the Warriors. But Valentine Holmes has scored well, even though the Dragons haven't been doing crash out this year anyway. And I mean, I think you can do a lot worse. If you have 4 or 5 gun center wings, I think you'd be very easily that guy that is your reserve each week for the run home. And you can play him on matchups, especially. You bench him for those tough games, and then you play him against the Cowboys, and he'll score you a 90 or something, and you'll be very happy with that. So let's keep moving down this list. Jamal Fogarty is not a buy right now. He's going to lose a bit more cash first, and until this last week, he was 3rd overall in the halfback averages. If we get him sub 600k for next week, he's going to start to look quite enticing as a point of difference option in the run home. There are not a lot of fantastic halves or 5/8 this year. It's pretty much Jaden Campbell, Nathan Cleary, and then a bit of head scratching. Munster's been good, but on and off. Hughes has been very, very hot and cold. And, well, Hines, not. So the options are a lot closer this year. It used to be just lock it up with Hines and Cleary and get probably your Munster and your Dylan Brown. This year, it's very open. And you can bring in somebody like a Fogarty. If he becomes cheaper and you get him for 600k or even below next week, I really, really like this option. I don't think I'll do it myself because I've already got Hines and Hughes. I'm just going to probably turn Hughes back into Cleary for the run home. He's going to be one of the 2 that you need at halfback for sure. So, yeah, plays 18. If you buy him in 18, I think you'll be pretty happy. Does miss a couple extra rounds than some others, so that is a knock against him. But, yeah, if the Raiders want to make top 4 and make a dent, he's going to be heavily involved in this run home for the Raiders. Reece Walsh is next on the list. And probably only comes into conversation because Scott Drinkwater has been pretty ordinary. He was very much saved by some heavy late updates to get to, what was it, 71 score last week? And yeah, sure, the draw is okay for Cows, but Cows don't look great. They've switched Purdue to centre and Clifford back to the halves. So that might reignite Scott Drinkwater. But if we don't end up with a good, some good signs for him in the next few weeks, he's probably going to be move on territory. And one of the options is definitely Reece Walsh. Is he the high ceiling guy? No, I don't think his base is there, but he always gets attacked. He's almost like the Isaiah Katoa of the fullback slot. He doesn't have the humongous like tackle breaks, kicking meter, run meter, that type of stuff, but he's always involved, injects himself. Does he do that for 80 minutes a game? No. Sometimes he saves his score with some absolute junk, but he will get assists and he will get tries. Captainable? Probably not, but at 617k, you could do a lot worse. Trell's also similar price, but with Origin around 18 and Bayern around 19, I'm going to leave him for somebody in the run home. He's probably not even going to be a pod in the run home. Somebody who will be a pod in the run home and is absolutely stunning to see at 0.4% ownership is Brian To'o. Now, why aren't people buying Brian To'o? The answer is, well, he was injured. And the other answer is that, well, he's playing the Bulldogs, and that finish to the year is nightmare fuel. Storm into Raiders, into Bulldogs, finish off with Dragons, which is nice, but we'll see. Panthers will be desperate to win games, though. They are on the edge of the 8 at the moment. And although the B team looked good, the A team has not really done that well this year. They've kind of not hit form, and they're really going to want to push. I don't think there's going to be any restings. So this upcoming run afterwards, though, is nice. Para into Souths, into Tigers, into Gold Coast, into Knights is very, very nice. And if you own Brian To'o for that, I think there's a very solid chance he's going to average 75 plus, maybe 80 through that section. He's going to put up some probably at least 100, maybe a couple, and do really, really nicely. I like Brian To'o as an option if he played, if there was even a shout for him playing round 18, which he can't. Sure, that's a mark against him. There's others that can play round 18, but Brian To'o is Brian To'o. We know what he can do year on year. He is a guy in and about that conversation and will go enormous. If you catch him on his once or twice a year 150, 160, you are a happy, happy super coacher. Somebody else who started the year very, very strong before being in and out was Christian Tuipulotu. A little bit like the Holmes pick, but a lot more hamstring worries with this one. So very high break even, but it's the Eels. What can he do? How can he go? So the Dragons' run is pretty clean. They miss no more games for the rest of the year, which is a big, big tick. I think Christian Tuipulotu can be really, really nice addition to your squad either this week or perhaps in the next couple if you're confident with how he looks and you go past the 2 weeks of high hamstring re-injury rates. So Christian Tuipulotu is one of those guys who I think can contend for your 5th or your 6th centre wing spot for the run home as one of those keeper options. Now, it's absolutely stunning to see all these guys down here because To'o, little tiny bit of a down year so far, 0.4% owned in the top 5%. Tuipulotu, yeah, injury, that's a little bit, that's all right as well. But Bradman Best, 0.2% owned. Sure, also injury, but he's just scored 116 against the Dolphins. No Greg Marshew. He scored 3 tons this year, which is pretty incredible. Hasn't historically been as good as some of the other options. And yeah, that's probably why not a lot of people are buying this week. That is nightmare fuel, but the end of the year is pretty decent. However, the Knights have been looking better in the last couple of weeks. If the Knights can actually start to score points, Bradman Best will be one of the guys they go to. And if you're very brave and are willing to go against that draw, he could be a real option for you because he is averaging 70 this year. 72. If you sort just by the best centre wing options and you take away all the injured parties and all the highly owned guys like your Zarkos, your Farnworths, your Garricks, your Kirazes, your Lomaxes, he is the next highest average, which is pretty interesting. So schedule is pretty yuck, but he's a proven century scorer and could be somebody that could make his way into your team if he continues to do well. Now, the pods this week are a bit lackluster, apart from maybe these top few. So I don't know if it's really weak for pods. I've seen like near on 50% increase in Kiraz and Karapani this week in their ownership. It just seems a straightforward week. But if you have the opportunity to go somewhere else, or you have Kiraz and you don't need Karapani, or you anything like that, we don't specifically need one of those guys. There are options out there. I even forgot Latu Fanu. See, this would be the easiest slam dunk trade, cash cow, cheapy, decent scorer of the early season if it was round 5, round 6. But because most people have a close to full squad, a lot of people have Jaden Campbell. A lot of people are prepping for Jaden Campbell when he comes back in round 19. And they're not looking at Latu Fainu. He looks fantastic. He's got a high work rate. Yeah, he went and played in the middle in some of these games, but he's going to make a lot of money quite quickly. And he can probably be your pivot to back to Jaden Campbell if you don't own him, or you can downgrade somebody to get to him. And, well, with 5/8 not being that crash hot, he can probably be your 5/8 number 2 for the run home, and then you might play him a couple of matchups if you need to. So I really like Latu Fainu, and I wish it could work for me. I've already got 2 guns there. Not really, really low trades, but starting to dwindle down a little bit. And I just don't need to. I don't need to play silly games there. I think that's probably the situation for a lot of coaches. But if you have the ability to bring in Latu Fanu, I love that. That seems just a big slam dunk to make a lot of money and score pretty decently well because he looks amazing. There are some cracking halves coming through at the moment, some young halves. Isaiah Katoa, Latu Fanu, Galvin's been fantastic the last few years. We're all up and about Sam Walker in the last few years, and I think all 3 of them could be, well, at least the first 2, looking better than how he started. So that'll probably do us for this week, except for my boy Jamin Jolliffe. I'll hold onto this one. I called him out with 0 owners in the top 1% in round 15 as an option, with Tino sternum injury and a few guys backing up and all that. And didn't he deliver 56 in 64 minutes and then 98 in 61 with that try? So to the one solitary Jolliffe owner in the top 5%, laughing and loud and proud. I'm sure about that. Yeah. Interchange this week, which I think's interesting, given that, well, I reckon he's probably pushing to go ahead of Fodawaker in the pecking order, but he did his job. It's a bit late now. You probably don't need a front row forward. Doesn't play for need, but had to shout him out because that was a pretty fun one. The most poddiest of pods worked out pretty well. That'll do for this week, guys. Next week, with the buys and the Roosters back in, especially, will be very, very interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of very enticing Roosters options to pick back up or to get into your team if you don't have them already. It's amazing how many relevant Roosters there have been. Sandon, Naf White, if you still have him. Savala's been good. Teddy's been good. Nawa's been good. There's been others as well. Angus is going to be a pickup probably in the run home. That's probably one of your edge pods and why one of your edge options and why you don't want to lock this position up too much by buying too many guys who are okay now but not brilliant. You might miss out on an Angus Crichton or a Hudson Young, and that could hurt you. So we'll talk a lot more about Roosters next week and about all these round 18 guys. But for now, play in your centre wing and get ready for this run home.